Gray skies in the morning, gray thoughts inside my mind, as I search for the source of sadness inside me that I somewhat cannot find. Is it grief that beckons me from losses to numerous dimension? Have all I bought myself with my recovery is a quiet type of suspension? Memories of faces lost somewhere in a distant past, and a world that guarantees that your closest connections will not last. Death is the sleep that forever puts them in the land of dreaming and leaves those of us still awake at a loss to find some meaning. Too much disillusionment, too many efforts made in vain, as I fight to help others heal the sources of their pain. While somewhere deep inside me is a child lost so long ago, who had risen to necessity, and so it was her childhood she'd forgo. And though I take her out to play, there are still things forever lost, and sometimes she stirs within me, reminding me of what it cost. And it's those dark days like today that the sky's grayness is shadowing my heart, and sadness lurks within me, and I cannot tease the source of pain apart. And as tears fall from the sky, they mingle with my own, and it's at times like this I feel so very much alone. Suddenly my humanness leaves me vulnerable and exposed, and the world I'm living in seems something that's been artificially posed. Where are all the answers for the questions that never stop? Where are all the names for each of the tears that silently drop? One tear for the mother who could not make it through her pain, another for the sister whose tears once fell like rain, one for the brother who never had a father, one for the father with whom his children he couldn't bother, one for each of the deaths that addiction demanded as its price, one for the family who lost everything when their father rolled the dice, one for too many youth whose lives were stolen by the drug, the one that felt like what they were missing, a warm and embracing hug, one for the many children lost in families who cannot parent, until they fight back against every system, until their pain becomes apparent. One for the victims of sexual abuse, whose ability to be in relationships is damaged. One for those diagnosed borderline, whose symptoms can't be managed. One for the kids left in a group home, with no one there who loves them. One for the young man who becomes violent, because that's where his violent family shoves him. One for the young girl who believes the pedophile really cares, because the family she grew up in only gave her angry stares. One for the children of the wars fought in house and street and city. One for the little children laid among the death without much pity. One for the homeless man sleeping dirty on the street. One for the young prostitute who has accepted her defeat. One for the kid who has bought the denigration of his peers. One for the brother whose sister OD'd but he cannot shed his tears. One for the kid who thinks he's a man but still has the mind of a child. One for the child who died after her father left her defiled. These are some of my tears that are raining from the sky, and at the end of many days I'm still asking the question why. Why are we called human beings when we cannot be humane? How can we support government policies when they only seem insane? This is the world I live in. Aren't you glad you get to avoid the truth of how many ways our society goes about destroying the lives of many youth? And no matter what is needed, we always come up short. And then the government spends thousands to come up with another useless report, another way to pay people who already get paid too much, who never know the true reality of the many lives their decisions touch, who aren't down in the trenches, in the battlefield of abuse and trauma, who only see these people as the creator of all their drama, who cannot get it in their heads about the experience of forever being rejected, until hate's the only thing that is capable of being detected. You have to step out of your office to meet them where they live, down on the streets where they're trying to get by on the little that you give. and lives where there is no future, only more danger and more violence. And they may be screaming out for help, but they're only screaming to the silence. And me, I'm one of the underpaid, trying to put a band-aid on a wound. And it doesn't matter because by the end of the day, their lives will still be ruined. But I have no other choice because, unlike you, I cannot walk away. I share history with them, so I know how much they had to pay. I was one of the lucky ones because I found a way out of the dark. I managed to free myself of addiction, but my past would leave a mark. All too aware of all the injustices of children left to try and figure out why sadness was so prevalent and what their pain was all about. And the journey out of hell is dark and long and painful, and what doesn't help are all the people who see you as so disdainful. It's hard enough to figure out why the family you grew up in was so unhealthy, why when it came down to love and care, your family was unwealthy. You don't need any more hurt and rejection, you've had more than your fair share, so much so that in the long run, you finally do not care. Your behavior seems uncivilized, but the ground you grew in was full of weeds, and you could have been a flower, but abuse just poisoned all the seeds. But despite that, you're expected to act properly and to follow all the social rules, like you're expected to build a house, but no one has provided any tools. And then when you fail to build it, you're considered nothing but a loser. Then they act like it's your fault, as if you ever had a chance to be a chooser. You need to get it that unhealthy people didn't get that way alone, but that they were raised in unhealthy environments where little love was ever shown. With no model of normal, they never learned what normal was, and eventually they believed this is what everybody does. But in the larger world, their behaviors didn't fit, but in the darkness of their lives, no light had yet been lit. We need to be the light that offers a chance to understand. We need to find the compassion to reach out and lend a hand. We only help the children whose abuse leaves physical signs, but we ignore the worst abuse that is rained upon their minds, and then we punish them for having been left in homes that hurt, so that the only future they face has already been buried in the dirt. The cycle has no end until we have decided it must end, and we cannot just ignore it, because it's on us they must depend. We must make the promise to protect each and every child. If not, it will be our future that we have left to file.